Good morning and welcome to our first course in English. So, this course will be an introduction to language. But before moving to language, we need to talk about communication because language is used to communicate our thoughts, our ideas, and our emotions. Communication is simply the act of transferring information from one place, person, or group to another. Every communication involves at least one sender, a message, and a recipient. This may sound simple, but communication is actually a very complex subject. The transmission of the message from sender to recipient can be affected by a huge range of things. These includes our emotions, the cultural situation, the medium used to communicate, and even our location. Just like in Algeria, where different wilayas have different accents. The complexity is why good communication skills are considered so desirable by employers around the world. When you're applying for a job, they tell you which language you can speak. At least four language is better. Accurate, effective, and ambiguous communication is actually extremely hard because there are a wide range of ways in which we communicate, and more than one may be occurring at any given time. The different categories the different categories of communication include: first, spoken or verbal communication, which include face to face, telephone, radio, or television and other medias, just like I'm communicating with you throughout a video. Non-verbal communication, conveying body language, gesture, and how we address or act, where we stand, and even our scent. There may subtle there there are many subtle ways that we communicate, perhaps even unintentionally, with others. For example, the tone of the voice can give clues to moods or emotional states, while hand signal or gestures can add to a spoken message. Written communication, which includes letters, emails, social medias, books, magazine, the internet, and other media. Until recent time, a relatively small number of writers and publishers were very powerful when it came to communicating the written words. Today, we can all write and publish our ideas online, which has led to an explosion of information and communication possibilities. The fourth is visualization, which used graphs and charts, maps, logos, and other visualization can all communicate messages. Just like when you're passing your driver license, there are some logos that you need to understand. Those are to communicate. Now we move to language and communication. First of all, what is language? Language is a foremost means of communication, and communication almost always takes place within some sort of social context. This is why effective communication requires an understanding and recognition of the connections between language and the people who use it. These connections are complex. For example, they tell you when to use slang with a friend or formal language with a boss, how to judge a candidate's campaign speeches, and whether to abbreviate an email. All of these acts require knowledge of the language, as well as the cultural and social forces acting on that language. As you work through this textbook, which is the PDF that we'll send you later on, you will study these various forces, especially as they function within the world. Social context is a major factor that drives our language choices. For example, consider the language you might have used in an interview situation, perhaps with a prospective employer or colleague admission officer. If you are like many other people in the interview, you probably were as much concerned with how you spoke as with what you actually said. The term language has been defined variably by different scholars. However, there are some common concepts that most of them do agree, that most constitute any reliable definition of language. Here I will be giving you some definition of different writers about language. The first one, language is a system of arbitrary vocal symbols, which are the alphabet, by means of which social groups cooperate. The second definition, language is a system of vocal symbols used for human communication, because as you know, animals do communicate, but they don't have specific vocal symbols. The third definition is language is a system of conventional spoken or written symbols by means of which human beings as members of a social group and participants in its culture communicate. The fourth definition, language is a learned, shared, and arbitrary system of vocal symbols through which a human being in the same speech community interact and hence communicate in terms of their cultural experience and expectation. The last definition, language is a system of arbitrary vocal symbols by which thought is conveyed from one human being to another. After defining what is language, now we move to some key concepts in the definition of language. The first one is system. This is a group of things of part or parts working together in a regular relation. A system assembles together units which form a regular and connected whole. The same is true with language because it assembles units which form a regular and connected whole. The language is constituted by subsystems which involves speech sounds, phonological system, morphological system, and syntactical system, semantical system, and lexical system. I will be giving you a brief definition of these systems. The first one is phonetic system. Linguistics talk about phonetic as a way of describing how sound are produced, transmitted, and interpreted in the brain. Each language must have these three stages: production, transmission, and recipient. Uh, each each alphabet has its unique sound and the way we pronounce it in our mouth. So this is phonetic system. Now, phonological system. Each language has got its own sound system. Phonology deals with sound system of a particular language. For example, English has 24 vowels, only 24 vowels, and it deals with how sound are articulated, manner of articulation in our mouth, where the place of articulation takes place, because the mouth has different places that produces the sound. State of the glottis, which is the voice or voiceless, which is the words that we pronounce with are voiced, are heard, and are not heard, and the cavity through which the air escapes, which is the nasal or the oral, which is the nose or the mouth. Now we move to lexical system, which between brackets means the words formation or vocabulary. Each language has its own way of forming new vocabularies. For example, English has the following: affixation, blending, compounding, borrowing, and conversion, acronyms, climbing, and etc. Now we move to morphology. Be careful, these are all connected to the key concept of system, which are known as the subsystems. Morphological system is the study of how words are formed out of four smaller, meaningful units, traditionally called morphemes. Morphemes are regarded as word building blocks. Now, syntactical system. Each language each language has a syntactic system that deals with how words are combined to form phrases and how phrases are combined to form clauses, and how clauses are combined to form sentences, and sentences combined to form paragraph, and so on. I'll be giving you a course about the syntactical system because it's an interesting course. Semantic system. Each language has a way of assigning meaning to its symbol, which are the words. And for someone to know the language is to know what reference do these symbols refer to. Like for example, the words look for means search and find. Look into, which means examine. Look after, which means take care of. Look in, which means visit casually. Alright, now we move to the second key concept, which is the symbol. A symbol is something that represents something else. Language is said to be a symbol because it consists of the word which represent objects, ideas, concepts, as well as people. So language uses acoustic images or graphic sign to represent reality. Every language has its own symbol which represents all its physical and conceptual experience. Like for example, a house, a cup, a school, a bus, etc. The third key concept, which is arbitrariness. The linguistic symbols are arbitrary because each language community picks them very hazardly. There is no any formal relationship between the words and what they mean. For example, there is no particular reason why the dog or cow or table was named so. They could be named otherwise. That's why we have different words in different language. However, there are some few exceptions of linguistics forms whose sound or structure relate to physical reality. This is the case of onomatopoeic words. Words which represent sound made by those objects, like new, which means cat, or piki piki, which means motorcycle, and antidiaphonic words, which shows the intensity of something. Now we move to the fourth key concept, which is the vocal. The, the word vocal refers to something related to sound. As you know, language is primarily made of sounds that are produced to physiological mechanism. It is interesting to note that even when the language is written, the letters represent sounds. Now we move to the fifth key concept, which is conventional. Language uses symbols, i.e., signs that must be accepted by the people of a particular speech community to use for communication. That's why speakers of one language can understand each other while those of the other language cannot. The sentence, like for example, the sentence "we are very happy today" is acceptable in English, which is a formal sentence. But "are very happy today," we, is not accepted because the word choices is not in the right places. All right. Also, some words terminology may be formed to supplement for new objects or situation, but if not accepted by that speech community, they die a normal death. For example, like tonardiri, which means the atoms, uh, Kuruzi, which means the torch, they are not often used. Some words may be well formed in a particular natural language, yet they may not be accepted in that particular speech community because of being considered ugly or because of having negative contention according to the cultural values of that particular speech community, which means we cannot use words from different cultural backgrounds to fit in our own because they may not be accepted. Now we move to learnability. Human language must be learned, although children unconsciously acquire competence in language at some stages. They must be taught by their teachers, parents, or siblings. For example, a dog will bark, a donkey will bray, a sheep will bleat, a dog will croak, just the same way anywhere in the world without any formal lesson or omission. Just I'm going to give you an example here, like in the movie Tarzan. He didn't know language because he was raised by monkeys. All right, so this is an example. Now we move to the last key concept, which is human. Language is said to be a human because it's only human beings who are capable of processing and using language. Animals are said to have no language, as do human beings, thought they communicate. Unlike animals, human beings are born with a language acquisition device, which is the LAD, which helps them to pick any language when exposed to it. There are different characteristics that differentiate a human language from animal communication. I will give you a course about the characteristics of human language later on. I will now give you the difference between errors and mistakes in language, because errors and mistakes are not the same. Well, they are the same, but according to language, they are not. The first one is errors. These are violations committed by people who have not mastered the language. They show the level which one has reached in language acquisition. For example, a child or a person or any grown-up who has not mastered a language violates a lot of grammatical and pronunciational rules. This shows that the child or the person is in the process of acquiring, learning the language. Sometimes it is hard for them to correct themselves. A child might say, "My mom gave me a gift yesterday." According to him, it is a correct sentence, but it is full of errors, and may not realize that he or she made an error. Now, the mistakes. These are violations made by people who have mastered the language. Sometimes the person immediately corrects himself or herself after making a mistake, but a person who commits an error may not correct himself. This is the difference between the errors and mistakes, because he does not realize whether he or she has made an error. But a competent person who utters the expression like "my mom gave me a gift yesterday" is likely to correct that utterance immediately and say, "Oh, sorry, she gave me a gift yesterday." This is what we technically call a mistake. The difference between an error and a mistake is the knowledge where you correct yourself. When you correct yourself, it is called a mistake. But if you don't know how to correct yourself, or you didn't learn yet how to correct yourself, it's called an error. So this sums up the course about introduction to language. We will continue on this course later on with the second video. Take care and share this with your friends, and don't forget to subscribe and share it all with your friends. I will be linking a PDF next to the video. See you later on.